Hello, this is David Ward, and welcome to this new tutorial on the style of Pixar's Cars and Planes, those the movies that they came out with, the stylized vehicles. I created this video, well, this particular one is actually new, but I created an older one about 8 years ago, well, about 7.5 years ago, I guess, and kind of just, you know, the typical style of the Pixar cars. It was for a contest called Anim Watch, which a friend of mine, Steve Ogden, was hosting at the time. It's kind of similar to the 11-second club, but in any case, he'd give us some audio to go through, and we just animate something. Didn't matter what it was, we just animate it to fit the dialogue. So the dialogue went, "I've been standing here for 50 years. So at the time it was 2007, and I was thinking, what would be 50 years old now? 1957 and 57 Chevy was the first thing that popped up. This might be closer to like a Bel Air or something like that, but semantics. In any case, I came up with this car, and after a few different style designs, I ended up just going with the Pixar style. And the hardest part was getting the eyes to match up. And back then, I used a different technique than I used when I just redid this HD version here a few weeks ago. Not exactly sure how I did that, to be honest. I don't remember. It's been 8 years or 7.5 years. But in any case, I came up with a good technique that works really well now. Might even work better than back then, because it's all based on bump maps rather than actual physical geometry coming out, so you don't have to worry about it going through the eyelids or anything. But in any case, I figured I would go ahead and do a little tutorial set on that. I've had a lot of people ask me how I did the eyes and things, so might as well just go ahead and just do a whole new section, a new tutorial. Hopefully it won't take too long. I don't want to do a full-fledged series. I might do, you know, a part or two, but we'll see how that goes. In any case, rather than go for the car style again, or even an airplane style, and risk, you know, Pixar being, hey, now that's our style or whatever. I mean, it's all their styles. Flattery's what is it? Impersonation is the best form of flattery, something to that effect. In any case, we're gonna go with the Submarine. This is kind of just a little sketch I sketched out here with my mouse here in Photoshop. And I drew this with my mouse, so forgive the childlike quality to it. If I would have drawn it by hand, it would look a lot better. But in any case, this is kind of just the general look and feel we're going for. Just a basic submarine with the Pixar look, and we'll give it a mouth and things like that. So, all that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So, first off, I've started with my Blender scene, and I have my screencast keys going now. I had to download the screencast keys Python file, as the newer versions of Blender don't include it by default, but it still works for me, so I like to keep it in there. And then another thing I did for my default scene is I made sure I turned this off, because by default this is turned on. You can see you can't see through your cube, and I like to be able to see through it, so I can, when I select something, it selects everything that I'm mousing over, rather than just, if I just selected it like that, you can see it only selects what's visible, and that's the name of the button there, limit selection to visible. So I turn that off so it selects everything. So in any case, that's in edit mode. I'm going to come out and I'm going to delete that default cube, and I'm going to Shift A. We're going to add in, let's add in a cylinder. Okay, and I'm going to lower the vertices down quite a bit. It starts off with 32. I'm going to cut that in half. Actually, I'm going to cut that even further than half. It's not a set division there, but it'll be 12 vertices rather than 32. And then that should be good. I'm going to go ahead and go into the top view and cut it in half now. I'm going to cut all these vertices off on this side, and then go ahead and select this edge, and let's hit the period button, the full stop, as some of you British people have called it. When I said period, somebody's like, what is a period? Like, well, it's, you know, the thing at the end of a sentence. I guess they say full stop in Britain. Those crazy British people. In any case, you hit the period button, the dot there, and that makes everything rotate around your 3D cursor. So you can see it's rotating around that point rather than its geometry. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit E to extrude. Go ahead and right click just to say, okay, we're done extruding. Then I'm going to scale it 0%, but that's going to knock it way down to our 3D cursor, which is there in the center. I don't want that. I just want it centered horizontally and Z depth. I don't want it vertically that way. So I'm going to hit Shift Z. So it's going to do it on the X and Y axis, but not the Z axis. So it centers it right there. So I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. E to extrude. Go ahead and click to say, yes, we're done extruding. Scale 0%, Shift Z. So now we have exactly that cut in half. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is go over to our modifiers, and we're going to add in a mirror modifier. So anything we do on this side automatically gets mirrored over to the other side. Okay, so now let's rotate this guy. Select everything by hitting A. Rotate it 90 degrees on the X-axis. So you hit R to rotate 90 on your numpad, 90 to rotate 90 degrees, and then X to rotate on the X-axis. So, okay, so we're going to turn this into an elongated cylinder cigar type shape. So I'm going to select those 2 points we just created. Actually, this is actually 12, or I guess 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points that are all scaled down together. So we want those just to be 1 point. So we're going to merge them together. So just select them all, hit the B button, get your selection crosshairs, click and drag over that. Alt-M will merge them at the center, will be fine. Then hit A to deselect, and then hit the B button again, click and drag, Alt-M to merge those at the center as well. So now we have just one vertex on each one of those. Okay, so we'll go to our side view by hitting 3. We're going to scale those on the Y-axis, just hit S and then Y, and we'll scale that out, and you'll see that it starts making that kind of a torpedo shape. So now I'm going to go ahead and add in a couple of loops here in the middle. I hit Control R. You can see that pink purple line comes up, and if you scroll your mouse wheel, or if you hit page up, page down, it'll add extra lines in there. And you can add as many as you want. We don't need that many. Maybe let's just add 3 for now. So we just click in, and if you just click and then move, you can change their position. But I want them to be right there in the center, so I'm just going to right click. It's going to lock them right in the middle. Okay, so back to our side view. Let's grab these 2 edges here. Actually, let's grab one of them at a time. If we hit G twice, G, G, we can move those along their normals, along the edges that they're. We can do an edge slide is what that's called. So let's just move that down, and pay attention down here over on the bottom left of your screen. You can see right now it says edge slide right there in the bottom left. Edge slide right now says 0.3537. So keep that in mind. So let's move that to an even number, maybe 0.4 if we can. If you hold on Shift, you can get a little more accurate, or Control is even more precise, more accurate. So say edge slide 0.4. So go ahead and click that in. Now I wanted to keep that in mind because I want to do this other side the exact same. So I'm going to hit GG, and we're going to hit 0.4. And there we go. So now it's perfectly the same distance as the other one was. So now we can select these 3 that we created earlier, scale those on the Y-axis, and move those out, and then maybe grab those tips, scale those on the Z-axis. We get a little bit less of a harsh fade out there. But I want it to be a little further, so I'm going to select everything, scale that on the Z-axis again. And let's make it a little fatter here in the middle. Scale that up. Maybe have the top of it be flat, but the bottom kind of a belly. So about like so. Then maybe we'll scale it on the X-axis a little bit. Okay, so one thing I'm going to do is this grid floor kind of gets in the way. It's kind of distracting for me. So I'm going to scroll down here over my properties panel. If you don't have that visible, just hit the N button. Scroll down to the Display tab and turn off grid floor. Just uncheck that. I'm also going to unselect the X and Y lines there. Okay, so we got our basic submarine shape coming in here. It's very faceted though. It's got, the flat surfaces, the faces there. So what I'm going to do is turn the shading right over here in our transform toolbar to smooth. And it doesn't look that great now because it's kind of just smoothing all those, the very, very low polygon right now. So what I want to do is add in a subdivision surface, and that kind of just smooths everything out even further. Adds more polygons. Not physically, well, I guess none of it's actually physically because it's all digital, but it doesn't actually add the extra polygons to the model. It just adds like a kind of a placeholder type of thing. If we go to our wireframe view, you can see all those extra faces have been added in there. If we turn this off, that's the original. Then that's the extra ones that it adds in with this modifier. If we get rid of that modifier, it goes back to the original. I'm going to Control Z, undo that. Okay, and this is the amount of subdivisions. The more you have, the smoother it gets. But problem is, the more you have, also the longer it takes to render. The more your computer has to calculate this, that, and the other, and it can get pretty messy if you put way too many. Usually 2. I usually stick with the default view of 1, render 2. So it's going to render a little bit smoother than it's showing in the preview. So in any case, let's keep going here. Let's get the front set up for, we're going to have a mouth right about here. If we go back to our little reference sketch, have a little mouth here right towards the front. This top piece is going to be a totally separate piece of mesh. It's going to be on the same model, but it's going to be a separate mesh. So we're not going to mess with that just yet. We're going to get the main body all set first off. So let's work on this part we're going to animate. It's going to be the mouth. So let's add in some extra loops in here. That's what the Control R does, is add in extra loops. So I want to go ahead and select, let's tell you what, let's grab the whole face, the whole front here, and I want to turn on clipping here on my mirror, because if I don't turn clipping on, if I scale it, it's going to separate out, or it's going to fold in on itself anytime I move it or scale it past the center mirror surface, as it were. So turn on clipping, it kind of glues it to that surface. You don't have to worry about accidentally going through it. So we'll go ahead and scale that down a little bit back to our side view. Maybe scale it here, and then let's go Control Comma now, so we're rotating around what's selected rather than the 3D cursor. And I'm going to kind of just give this a little bit more of an upturn, so his mouth is not, so far on the bottom, and then it's actually more kind of towards the front view. Scale that on the Z-axis a little bit, maybe. Okay, so the mouth is going to be about right here. So there's a couple of things we can do to get that effect. I guess let's just do this one. We'll select these 6 faces right there, and we're going to hit E to extrude, and then I'm going to hit S to scale those down. And this is going to be kind of our lips, the structure of our mouth here. Move that down, and maybe scale it even further on the Y-axis, SY. Oopsie, I hit Y on accident. And if you just hit Y without anything else beforehand, it separates whatever you have selected. So right there, I hit Y and then H, and it hid that piece there. But I don't want that separated, so just undo all that. Now we'll come in here. I want to get these pretty close together, so we don't have such a, so it still looks like a smooth surface there across this area. So another thing we can do well, I was going to show you the sculpt tool. If we come in here and grab the smooth option, we can just come in here and kind of just mouse over that. And that'll work visibly here, but it kind of messes up our underlying topology so that we can't animate it that well. So I'm just going to undo all that. And I don't know how many times I did that, but that looks about right. Okay, so back to edit mode. Good. And we're going to select these guys and just move those forward. And we want this to be as natural looking, like it's just part of the smooth original hull, as it were. So it's a submarine. It's going to have a hull, H-U-L-L. And just get that lined up so it's nice and smooth looking, like the mouth is just part of it, originally part of it, not added in like we're doing. So we'll get that lined up as best we can, and then we can go off of that and add in the rest of the lips or whatever inside the mouth. Okay, so that's looking decent. You kind of get a better idea of what it's going to look like over here. Right now we've kind of got a crease right there, but that's fine. We're still working with it. Let's go ahead and select all these guys that we originally extruded, and go ahead and extrude them again. This time we're going inside, and this will kind of be not the lip per se. I'm going to add another loop in out here so we can have actual lips, but this is going to be like the border of the mouth. So we'll go ahead and come in one more time, maybe start scaling this one up on the Y-axis. Maybe scale it up, maybe go to our front view so we can see make sure we're not getting too crazy. And let's go ahead and hit W, and then I'm going to go smooth. And it's going to smooth that out a little bit. So let's do that a couple of times. Maybe we can scale it up a little bit more. I'm not going to give him a tongue. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure if Pixar adds tongues, but then I remembered Mater, the toe Mater. He likes to stick his tongue out and wiggle it around, so you can give him a tongue if you want. I guess we can go ahead and do that. Let's just get the inside of the mouth ready to rock before that. Okay, now let's go a little further inside his head here. With my car that I made, the 57 Chevy I showed you earlier, I kind of just did a very basic inside of the mouth, just so he could open it and talk. I didn't go so far as to put a tongue and everything. I think I gave him some rudimentary teeth, so we'll do that too. But we'll go ahead and give him a tongue this time as well. Okay, so the tongue, let's go with these two faces in here if you can get to them. So we'll go to our side view again. Go ahead and extrude that out, maybe scale them pretty small there on the y-axis. And then maybe we'll go ahead and smooth those up, W smooth. Okay, and then go ahead and extrude out again. And it doesn't have to be real detailed. Okay. Well, it's kind of squared off. Let's round that if we can. Go ahead and grab the corners of it. There we go. And if we hit Alt-O on our keyboard, Alt and then the O button right, next to the P, not the 0, that'll add what's called the proportional editing. And that's kind of just a gradual fall off where you can kind of just move vertices, and it moves the ones that are nearby it as well in a gradual fall off type of thing, so you get a nice smooth movement as you're trying to kind of reshape your underlying mesh. Okay, so that'll work for the tongue. Now let's go ahead and go on the outside here and just add some more lips there. I'm going to add one more loop, Control R, right there around there. And then we'll grab, I guess we can grab the whole shebang there. And this will be his outer lips, so we'll just extrude that out like so. And then we can, you don't want to leave it like this, because, I mean, if you wanted to for that particular style, you could, but I'm going to try to make it look a little more Pixar-ish and make the lips a little smoother in there. So I'm going to select all these vertices here on the outside. And I guess here on the corner of the mouth, I'll go ahead and select the ones there as well. And we'll just hit W smooth, maybe a couple of times. Let's get that smoothed out. We can bring this in. And let's go ahead and model the mouth closed, and we can open it back up later when we go to start making shape keys for the different expressions. So we'll just get this smoothed out here, this top lip, a little more gradual. And bring the inside of the bottom lip up. And let's go ahead and get the corner of this closed off there. Okay, so we got the basic lips out there, kind of square looking still. So I'll tell you what, let's grab that corner. We still have our proportional editing turned on. So let's just make sure we're grabbing both parts of the top lip and the bottom lip. Let's just come in here, and we'll just kind of drag that in. Maybe get this rounded off here a little bit too. Okay, so that's looking okay. This is the front nose area is kind of starting to look a little flat, so let's round that out a little. Let's tab out of edit mode, kind of see what this is starting to look like. That's looking okay. I'd like to bring in the corners of the mouth a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and jump. I'm already in sculpt mode, but if you're not in sculpt mode, just go click there, sculpt mode, and I'm going to get the grab tool and increase the radius of it a little bit. And let's grab the corner of that mouth and just drag that in. Maybe just kind of click and pull, push and pull around here till we get that nice and rounded up. That looking the way we want to. Make it look organic. Even though it's going to be a steel plated surface, we want it to have that organic look, so it's, you know, kind of the Pixar living car. So get that a little bit more. Give him some poofy cheeks. Might need to add a little bit more underlying geometry for that, so let's tab into edit mode. Let's add one more loop right here. So let's add that in, and then maybe we can grab this one so there's not such a close proximity. We don't want these vertices too close to here because it'll create a crease or a sharper line. So let's just hit GG twice on that and move those out. Maybe just move this out a little bit gradually. Just kind of give him a lot more vertices there in his mouth area. The more we have, the more we can smooth out his expressions. Okay, so we got some more of a geometry in there. Let's go ahead and grab this corner of their mouth here. Go ahead and just drag that up in here, kind of like we were doing with the sculpt tool, but we'll just do it manually in here with the vertices, and we'll grab this new row of vertices up here. I guess that's not a new row, but we'll grab that row and bring that out so we have kind of the rounded cheek area right there, as you can see. And then maybe we can grab this one, kind of fatten that up just a bit. You can spend hours, as I've said in my previous tutorials, you can spend hours and hours getting things like this looking exactly the way you want. You can spend more time on it if you like, but for me that's going to be that. Let's go ahead and add one more loop right here on the middle of the lips, just so we have a little bit more of a crease along the edge of them, like so. If we turn our subsurface modifier to 2, we can get a better idea of how that's starting to look. So that's looking pretty good. I'm real happy with that. So let's grab our smooth tool while we're in our sculpt mode. Now we'll use the smooth just here along the edge of the mouth, just so we can get a little more realistic lip edge there. So it's not going to be that sharp edge all the way around, just be right there. Maybe, oops, a little too much. I'm going to set the strength way down. Let's put that about 0.25. Come in here, maybe get the grab tool again, just touch it up here and there. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Let's add in another loop right here. Once we collapse all those vertices into one and merge them all together, we can no longer add loops right in here. We can only add them between two actual loops that are pre-existing. One way around that, if we want to subdivide that to put another row of another loop right in here, is to grab our edge select tool. And if you hold down Alt and Control, I believe, maybe it's Alt Shift. No, Control. Well, we can just do it individually. Just hold down Shift and just right click on each one of these guys, and then we can hit W, subdivide that, and it'll add a loop there. So now we can add this. Maybe drag this a little further up, just G twice, so we move that a lot closer towards the edge. Maybe bring it in. And we can add in another loop here, just so we get a nice, better rounded topology there on the tip of the torpedo, the tip of his nose area. Maybe we can drag this one back down a little bit, just smooth that out a little better. Okay, so let's look at our little sketch up here. We're going to have a kind of just a plated piece of steel, I guess, right there around the front, or iron, or whatever material submarines are made out of. I'm not an oceanographer or Navy guy. I was an Air Force guy myself. But in any case, let's add a loop right in here. And let's see if we can straighten that out a little bit. Make it more of an actual smooth circle shape rather than kind of going along with the shape of the face. And let's add one more loop right there in front of it. Right there. And I'm going to scale that up just a, let's turn off the proportional editing first though. And then I'm going to scale that up just a little bit. And then grab this other one, scale that down a little bit. And that's going to give us a nice edge around that. So we actually have, you know, a separated piece that, well, it looks separated, but it's not. We'll add one more loop right in here between these two, and that'll give us a nice sharp edge around there. And you can see now it looks like a totally separate piece. If we smooth up the surface a little more, maybe so it's not quite so sharp, that'll give us more of a smooth plate that's been hammered on there and bolted around. And once we get to the texture mapping, we'll add some bolts around the edge there, so it looks nice and kind of like this here with the little dots, except those are bolts. Okay, so we got the mouth area pretty well set. Let's go on towards the back and make this a little more stylized back here as well. This one doesn't need nearly as many vertices because it's not going to be animated at all. So we'll just scale that down, maybe rotate it. Add another loop right in here so we can get a nice kind of a belly, fat belly there. Almost a bean shape, sort of. Maybe grab this main guy here, scale him up a little bit. And drag him down on the z-axis. There we go. Okay, so this is looking okay. Let's take a look here. What else we got? We had some fins and some rudders back here, and then the propeller, or the screw as they are called sometimes. So, okay, so we'll just tab into edit mode, and now we're just going to add in, let's go to our top view, the 7 button. I'm going to shift A, and I'm going to add in a cube. And right now, if I move it, it's going to glue together there in the middle because the clipping on the mirror modifier is turned on. So let's turn that off. Move that over here. Go ahead and turn it back on. So this is going to be our side fins there. So we'll scale that down. It's kind of like wings. But it's on a submarine instead of a plane. So we'll scale that down and then add in a couple of loops here. Maybe one back here and then maybe one in the middle. Then the same thing here and here. Like so. Then maybe just one around here. Maybe scale that out a little bit. Okay, so this is where we start stylizing it. Go ahead and just drag it out, make it look kind of fin shaped. Just kind of tapered there. Just move these out too. Okay, let's taper it a little more. We'll grab the front end here, scale that up, then grab the outer edges there, scale those down. About like so. Good to go. Alright, select all that, Control L, and I'll just move that into place, maybe scale it down a little bit, move that into place, just stick it on there. About like so. Maybe we'll come back a little bit further up here, and maybe in a little bit. Okay, so that's looking good. Tell you what, let me go ahead and save this. And let's just create a new folder here, new directory, and we'll call this one Submarine. And then go in there, and we'll say Submarine _01. Save that. Okay, so now let's duplicate those, or one of the, I guess since we're in mirror mode, it'll be the same one. Duplicate this, and this will be our vertical fins, or the rudders. So what I want to do, since it's going up to the mirror edge, I want to delete the top vertices there. Okay, and we'll select that. Rotate that 90 degrees, negative. There we go. Drag it in until it meets there in the middle. And bink. You can see once we hit the middle, it kind of glued together. So the vertices merged. So it looks nice and neat now. Go ahead and scale that. Maybe let's scale that on the y-axis a little bit, and let's taper that just a bit more. Okay, now we'll select all that. Control L selects all that. Move that down. About like so. Alright. So now let's Shift D, duplicate that. And we're going to SZ -1. And that scales at -100% on the Z axis. But however, doing that flips the normals. What the normals are the directions that the individual planes are facing. And they're all facing out, as they should be. But since we inverted that, scaled it on the negative axis, it inverted the normals. So now you can see they're a different color. They're a little bit darker than the others. And that's not supposed to be that way. They're all supposed to be the same shade. But since the normals are inside out, it's a different color. So that's one way you can easily tell if your normals are not correct. So the way to fix that, it's real easy. Hit Control N, and it just makes the normals consistent. It flips them inside out. The ones that are the wrong way, it flips them to the right way. So let's just move this up here. It's about in the same spot. Scale it down a little bit. And there we go. All right, go ahead and save this. And now we'll just kind of do a totally separate piece over here. Let's come back to object mode. Object mode, there we go. So I'm going to create a totally separate piece, and then I'm going to merge it. So be pretty easy to do. I'm going to go Shift A, and we're going to add in a cone this time. And go ahead and give it 12 vertices there. And we'll, the base of it right now is filling it with what's called an n-gon. And what an n-gon is it's basically a polygon that has, I guess, an infinite number of edges that it can have. Whereas you really want, for animation purposes, you really want each polygon to be four-sided. So what I want to do is go ahead and make that a triangle fan, and it'll give you triangles, which are three-sided, obviously, but that's better than the n-gon, because when it starts mapping it out for rendering purposes, it kind of turns it into a triangle fan. Anyway, so let's go ahead and turn it into that, so we can actually work with it here. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these sides again, just like I did with the submarine itself. And this is going to be the screw thing there. If we look at our reference here, it's got the little propeller deal there on the end. So I'm going to do the same thing I did on the submarine itself and give it a mirror modifier. There we go. And let's go ahead and we'll have to select all these edges here again so we can subdivide them maybe a couple of times. A few cuts. There we go. So I want this to be nice and rounded as well. So we'll bring that down. Just do this kind of by hand. Scale that down. Get a nice rounded, like so. Okay, so let's select all this, rotate it 90 degrees there. And this one I'm going to scale it down a little bit, put it back on that orange dot there. You can see that orange dot's the origin, the center of the model here. So let's just put that about right there. And then I'm going to duplicate it, drag it up, and scale that down, maybe a little less on the y-axis. Scale it, and move that back. This is going to be kind of the cap or the actual propeller itself. And you can see since I didn't have clipping turned on, it kind of screwed up our whole layout here. So we just got to turn clipping on now, and then just move it to the middle until it meets and glues itself back together. So about like so. Then maybe. We want it to be a nice circle. So I guess that'll work. Okay, so I want to go ahead and add in another loop on this side. So let's select all these vertices and subdivide that. Maybe twice. Okay, and we'll grab the outer one, GG twice, bring that up. Just so when I add in the subdivision surface, it's still got a nice edge on it. And we'll do the same thing on this guy. Subdivide, there it is. Just drag this up to the edge. Okay, so this is going to be our propeller area. So let's go ahead and make the propeller a separate piece as well. This is just going to be a cube, and put it way there in the middle. Okay, let's tab in here, scale it the y-axis till it's nice and flat. And I think I went inside out there, so Control N. There we go. And let's just move this over until the middle of it, or to the edge of it's in the middle. There we go. I'll go ahead and turn on, actually, I'm not going to turn on the mirror because this is going to be a propeller, it's not going to be a mirrored image. So we'll just have to get that second half once we get done with the first half. So I'm just going to delete the face there in the middle of that, because once we get the other half done, we don't want a face in the middle between the two areas, because it'll just be weird. So we just want to make sure it's a nice watertight separate piece there. So I'm going to add a loop in here. Scale this down. The way I did that is I held down control. My fingers know what I'm doing, but my head doesn't. Control and Alt at the same time, and that selects the whole loop of edges there. So we're just going to scale that down, and then let's go ahead and add in maybe one right there. Scale that one down a little bit, and maybe one here, and then maybe one about there. Then we'll select this end and make that about like so. Let's go to our top view. Let's make those a little flatter, like so. And then let's go to our side view and let's make it sharper on one edge. So I'm going to deselect the top edge. So hold down, hit B, and then hold down Alt. Okay. There's some of the default settings. Every time I upgrade Blender, I have to redo these because I forget. You go to User Preferences, and on the input, emulate 3-button mouse. I don't know why you have to emulate it, because I've always used this all across all versions of Blender. I always have to check that. But in any case, you hit B, you can hold down Alt and deselect whatever's selected. So, So let's select this bottom edge now that we couldn't deselect it before. Anyways, we'll scale that on the Y-axis and sharpen that down, maybe move it up. So it looks like, you know, when it's rotating, go to our front view, when it's rotating, it's going to slice into the water and push the water that way. So actually, this one would need to be rotated this way. Well, depending on which way it spins, I guess, it's going to cut the water like so and push it behind it, so it would need to go like this to the front. Okay, so like I said before, we left that middle part out. But tell you what, if we add a subdivision surface to this, you can see it's kind of too round. I'd like to add a couple of more loops in there so it's nice and the way we designed it. By the way, if you're not familiar, if you hit 1, that's the front view in your 3D viewport. Control 1 is your back view. So add a loop there so we can round that out. Okay, let's make this part a little bit smaller. Okay, I think that'll work. Okay, so like I said before, we can't mirror this because then it would have, you know, conflicting angles there as it's spinning. So what we need to do basically is just Control 1, select everything, and we're going to Shift D, duplicate it, rotate it 180 degrees. Good to go. And then we'll just move it over into place as close as we can get to the other, and then we'll just have to select each one like so and center and merge them at the center. And I think that's it. Yes. Okay, so now we have our propellers. Now if you wanted to make another set of them, it can be easily done. Just go select everything, Shift D, and then just rotate it 90 degrees. So you rotate 90 degrees. So now you have 4 blades instead of just the 2. Okay, so let's move that into place here. Maybe scale it down a little bit. And then move it vertically where it needs to go, like so. Maybe we'll get this cap here, scale that down. The thing with the mirror modifier is if you just do like so and you just scale around what's selected, it just scales around the half that's selected rather than the full thing. So if you want to actually scale around the center of the mirrored object, you have to set the 3D cursor to selected into one of the center vertices. So then you hit the period button like we did in the very beginning and scale around that. So like so. Okay, so now I can see the propellers are not quite straight. So about right there. Okay, so let's get those attached to the thing here. You just select both of them, Control J. I guess they have to both be selected. There we go. Uh-oh. This one still has the mirror modifier, so go ahead and apply that. Then we can do it. Control J. There we go. And oops, I applied the subsurface. We don't do that. Just don't want to do that just yet, or actually at all, really. We want to leave that as a placeholder thing. We'll just move this into place on the end. Control comma. The 3D cursor gets me a lot of times. Okay, so let's just scale that down a bit. Maybe grab the original Submarine and skinny the tail end of it down a little bit so it's nice and actually round rather than oval shaped. Alt O to get the proportional fall off. Let's get that down into place and set the shading to smooth on that. And okay. So we're 40 minutes in. Usually, you know, in my previous tutorial series, I prefer to do about 20 minutes a piece, but try to change things up a little bit on this one. But in any case, we got our basic head body of the submarine here. I guess in the next part, we'll go ahead and do the eye area. So we'll get started on that. So just a little look here. We're here in perspective view. It's looking pretty good. I really like how the mouth came out. Still need to put the teeth in there, the rudimentary, just white squares basically, or white rectangles for teeth, but it's looking pretty good so far. So in any case, that's going to be it for part 1, and we'll check it out in part 2.